What's going down, guys? I am back. Brand new video, and today we're going to be doing a PC build. Not necessarily with new parts though. What we're going to be doing is working with old Betsy right here, the Be Quiet Dark Base Pro 900, and we're actually going to be building an inverted system. So I don't think I've actually done this before now that I think about it. So I thought it would be kind of cool to just kind of build, in this case, the inverted way, and then kind of let you guys know my experience with doing that. So that's exactly what we're gonna do today. So in order to invert the motherboard, what we'll wanna do is just break down the case to the bare chassis, which is what I've done here. You can see pretty much everything comes off this thing. You can take off the front panel, the top panel, even the bottom basement comes off to just kind of break it down and give you some room to work with. So the motherboard's basically held on by screws on the main side of the case and then on the back side. So we've just got to undo those, and then we can flip the motherboard around. Alright, so the motherboard tray is out, and I guess you could technically use this as a test bench, at least according to Be Quiet. There's not really anywhere to put your power supply, but you know, if you wanted to just break down the case temporarily and maybe use this to do some testing or something like that, it's an option for you. I don't know how practical it is, but it's there. One thing I don't really care for in this case is the power supply installation. There's basically a bracket that you attach to your power supply. Then you install screws into the chassis where you want to position the power supply, and you kind of just slot the bracket onto those screws through these slotted holes. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube, they are like removing some of the back panels to get to the power supply screws, and I think the whole installation process is just a little bit unclear and kind of more involved than it should be. So I would like to see them kind of revise the setup a little bit. On the plus side, it does give you a lot of flexibility as far as where you want to position the power supply in terms of you know, your motherboard installation, but it's just a little involved. So I got the motherboard back in now. You can see here it is definitely upside down and looking kind of crazy. Got all the panels off. Still got to put everything back together, do my cable management and stuff. I'm not sure what I'm going to do as far as a CPU cooler yet, but I'm I'll have to figure something out. But it looks kind of crazy. As you guys can see here, it also opens up on the right side now instead of the left side. So the tempered glass side panel is going to be on the opposite end of the case. So definitely going to be an interesting setup here. I'm excited to finally get it back together, man. You can really break this case down to the bare chassis. Everything comes off. So it's taken a little bit of time to kind of get it back together, but we're making progress, baby. We are almost there. Check it out. So I got the CPU cooler and the graphics card in there now. I decided to go with the Noctua NH-U12S. This is a Ryzen specific kit. And I went ahead and replaced the fan, the normal tan fan that you get with an industrial NF-F12 that I had lying around there. So if you're wondering why it looks a little bit different, that's why. But normally if you buy this kit, you'll get the typical tan fan from Noctua. But yeah, I wasn't really sure where I could connect my radiator if I went with an all-in-one with this setup, just because I don't know if the tubing is going to be long enough, so I decided to just go with a simple air cooler here. And then for the graphics card, we've got the RX 580 that you can see up top there, which I think is going to be kind of crazy to see the fans on the graphics card spin when I'm actually playing a game or something. So that's going to be kind of cool to look at. But yeah, we're making progress. The one thing that's nice about this case is it has plenty of cooling options. So you get 240 millimeter fans by default here, but you can actually run up to 340 millimeter fans in this case. All you have to do is remove the 5 1/4 inch bay up top here. Which I tried to do. Unfortunately, the screw holding this in, or one of them, was too damn tight, so I couldn't get it out. But assuming that you can on your system, there is a bracket that you will install in place of this that will allow you to fit that additional 140 millimeter fan, which also means you can install radiators up to 420 millimeters in size, which is nice. Now on the top here, you've got a similar situation. You can install up to 340 millimeter fans, or you can even do 420 millimeter fans up here. So definitely a lot of cooling options. You can also run up to a 420 millimeter radiator up top here. And the adjustable motherboard height means you can accommodate for thicker radiators. So Be Quiet says you can actually account for clearance anywhere from 40 millimeters up top here all the way to 90 millimeters depending on the orientation of the motherboard here. Now obviously you're going to have to mess around with the placement of your power supply in order for that to work, but you do have plenty of options there when it comes to cooling the cooling your system. My one concern with water cooling in this case is it appears to be set up more so for silence rather than pure airflow. As you can see here on the top panel, you've got sound deadening material here rather than just straight airflow. So I'm not sure if temperatures are going to be an issue if you run a radiator up top or at the front, which has a similar setup. I haven't done any testing on it, but I think it is something to just kind of be aware of. Aside from that, of course, we've got support for a 140 millimeter fan in the rear there. And at the bottom, you can do 240 millimeter fans as well. Obviously, that is going to depend on your power supply length, as the one that we have here would not actually support that configuration. Also on the solid side panel, there is support for 220 millimeter fans. So if you wanted to either exhaust or intake air from the back side of the motherboard, that's an option for you. One thing I forgot to mention when it comes to water cooling is in the spot here where the drive cages normally go, which I've actually removed them all, but you can actually install a reservoir here in this location. There's just a small bracket that kind of holds it down to one of these places here and allows you to mount your reservoir. Also, if you put back one of the drive cages, there's kind of a plate that'll sit over the top of the drive cage that will allow you to mount a pump. So it really is complete in terms of water cooling options here, which if you're going to do that is nice. I think one day I want to try doing like a hardline tubing build, a custom loop in a case like this, and maybe even this one, because yeah, I like all the options that it has. I've just finished the cable management, and it was kind of weird just because, you know, normally like your 24 pin and your 8 pin connectors, for example, are way at the top of the case. This time they're right next to the power supply. So you end up with a lot of excess cable, which you've kind of got to bunch up and tie down somewhere. So I kind of had to deal with that. Also for the intake fans at the front, I had to use extensions so that they would reach the fan hub, which is now at the top of the case instead of towards the bottom. Otherwise, I would have had to run the wires like directly through the drive cage area, and that would have looked kind of weird. But all in all, I think I got it down to look pretty decent. I can actually close the side panel and stuff. So yeah, it's good to go. Just needs a PSU shroud in my opinion. As you guys can see, it's done. Let's have a look-see real quick. Got the graphics card there sitting on top. You can finally see the fans when the system is on. That is kind of crazy, but I like the way it looks. Also got the Noctua cooler down here. Not too bad looking with my Noctua fan there. This is a pretty interesting design. The exhaust fan there down at the bottom near the power supply. The only thing is with the power supply, I kind of had to route the cables a little bit further, since you can see like the ATX cable comes way from the other side of the case. And I had to do some interesting stuff on the back side there to get everything to kind of fit directly or fit perfectly. But yeah. It's a pretty interesting setup. I like how Be Quiet has kind of implemented this into their case. I never would have did it initially, but now I'm kind of glad that I did. There are a couple things that are worth mentioning about this case. Number one, if you're going to be building in this case with the front panel on, expect the front door here to swing open about 3 million times. They need a stronger magnet on that thing for sure. That was super annoying. The Qi charger on this thing, I didn't really use. That was not really a needed feature for me or something that would be a selling point if I was shopping for a case. I do like how you have a central location for your fans and your LEDs, so that's kind of nice. I also like the overall cooling support. You've got tons of support for fans and radiators. You've got 180 millimeter maximum CPU cooler height if you're doing air cooling. So overall, you just have a lot of options. The only thing I would be concerned about is if you are water cooling. The top and front panel are definitely designed for silence rather than pure airflow. So that may be an issue temperature wise, but I don't know. I haven't done any official testing. That's just kind of my uneducated theory. I do like the modularity of this case. I mean, you can really break it down to the bare chassis. Everything comes off. Top panel, bottom panel, both side panels, front panel, drive cages. 5¼ inch bay. I mean, everything comes out of here, which is really nice if you're wanting to, you know, do something custom with the case, or maybe you've got some type of intricate build where, I don't know, you just need to get to everything. It'll really allow you to break it down. I also like how you can raise or lower the motherboard height, or even flip it like I did and run an inverted setup. That's pretty interesting. Something I've never actually done before, which I think is cool. I don't know how necessary it is, but it's just a cool option. There's just a lot of building options that they give you, which I guess is really the selling point of this case, is the modularity. So I think they did a good job there. One thing that I would like to see that I didn't hear though is a PSU shroud. I would have liked something that could have attached to the bottom of the motherboard tray, maybe with thumb screws. If you guys think like Phanteks Enthoo Pro, they've got the kind of optional PSU shroud that just attaches to the motherboard tray with 3 thumb screws in the back. Something like that I think would have been really nice for a case like this to really hide some of those cables. So aside from that, I think they could have maybe improved on the PSU installation. I think it's kind of a little bit too involved, which I mentioned earlier, and I've seen a lot of people do it wrong on the on YouTube and stuff like that. So I think they may need to revise that a little bit. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid case. Lots of options, lots of build options. You've got lots of hard drive options. So if you're building a workstation, I think you can do like 7 3¼ inch or 3½ inch drive bays in the main compartment there. The screws for removing some of this stuff was too damn tight though. They need to figure that out. But yeah, there's just a lot of options with this case, man. I think it is, it's really nice, pretty solid case overall. It's not perfect. There are some things that I would like to see them improve on, or maybe add as features. But yeah, overall, just a solid modular case. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Make sure you like this video if you like this type of content. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm out of here. Until next time, see ya.